Like Nathan said, I'm Justin. A little bit of context before the talk. I've been writing Elixir for 5 or 6 years now, using it to start my own companies. I wouldn't pick any other tool for that. But before that, I worked a lot on the front end side of things. And at the time, it was a really fun moment in front end because like the framework wars were going on, and there were all these new technologies kind of being put to the test. And I'm someone who likes to go in and test those limits and try to break things. And that's true, especially today. It's something that's very fun to do on the front end. And I'm going to be talking about how we can do that with Tailwind, especially in the context of LiveView. If anyone doesn't know where they stand on Tailwind yet, if it's good or bad, my goal is that after this talk, there won't be any of you. There will be either people who love it now or absolutely can't stand it. And all right, let's go over things. So, might not have animations, but we'll see. So quickly going to go through basics of Tailwind, talk about some of the power user features, and filter in demos along the way so we can see how they're used and eventually work up to some pretty interesting things. You've probably seen classes like this if you've used Tailwind. This is the shortest possible Tailwind class. It adds 1 spacing unit of padding around an element. And I'm putting this here now because I'm going to contrast it with the longest Tailwind class you've ever seen, which will be at the end of the talk. And for those who might not know, Tailwind is basically a way to write CSS purely in classes, and the tool will read those classes, take them out of your code, and generate the CSS files so that you're not actually writing CSS by hand. Your class names encode the CSS. And a lot of people think that this can lead to spaghetti code of some kind. I'll give my opinion on that later, but to each their own. The first thing I want to talk about are variants, and this is a way to take a base Tailwind class and modify it so that it only exhibits its behavior in certain scenarios. So for example, text that's only indigo when you hover over it, or hover on underline, or sorry, underline on hover, removing an outline when an element's focused, hiding on large screen sizes, and these can actually combine. It uses CSS's specificity rules so that you can have an element that's hidden usually, and then on small screen sizes is shown with display block. And you can do this, over and over. Popular with things like flex to change element direction on different screen sizes, and you can combine them. So this element will only have a background of red when you're hovering over it on large screens. Why would we need that? Well, we'll see. You can also dip into, CSS can do a lot. So here we're saying make the text green if that element has a data attribute that is data completed. And so now we can mix in data on our elements and use it to apply styles to them using just class names. So that's variants. We also have groups. Groups are a way in Tailwind to dictate the style of child elements based on what the parent element is doing. So what that looks like is you'll have a div maybe with a group class that defines it as a group. And then inside it, we can have a span that will turn red if anywhere in the group is hovered. So this group has some padding. No matter where you hover inside the group, even if you're not on that span directly, you'll see red text. You can also name groups. So if you want to give, if you have nested groups, you can name them, and then that scopes the group to a particular name, and that's a way to kind of organize code that could otherwise conflict. Last, kind of more basic usage of Tailwind is arbitrary values. if you use square brackets, you can put whatever you want in a Tailwind class as a value. So this would give an element a width of 47.3 pixels, because that's what your designer asked for. This, provides a custom color to some text. You can have percentages. You can have a custom background image using a URL. You can also use this inside of variants. So here, this text will have this custom color value applied if the data attribute for color on that element is set to the value red. So again, having the data on the element dictate or interact with the styling. It can also interact with groups. So this class will color this text that color if the group that it's in, if that parent element has the data color red attribute. It's getting fun. And keep in mind, that is a single class name that Tailwind will scrape out of your code base and give you styles for. Okay, so now we're combining variants. This will apply that text color to an element if the group it's in, named container, is hovered over and is a large screen size and has the data color attribute set to red. Which is great. That's amazing. 62 characters. So, longest class name we've seen so far. We're not even close to done. First demo of how this might be used. This is kind of taking things back to simple. So here we have some text, and I can click to copy it. And when I click, the icon changes, and the text is copied. Now, how can we do this with messing with as little JavaScript as possible? There is some JavaScript. I promise it's the last JavaScript you'll see. But when we get that copy event, make this a little larger, on a successful copy, we can set the data copied attribute to true on that element. And then in our button component, we have two spans, one that shows when the group it's in has copied, and one that's hidden when that group data attribute is set. And that way, we can just render both states, and they switch based on whether or not you've actually clicked on that button. So that's one example. And second example, we have some tabs. And if you want to switch between them, but also have it sync with your LiveView on the back end, we can use CSS for this, where when you click this or one of the tabs, it will do two things with JS commands. First thing it does is push an event to the server, so the server can handle that, maybe like refresh that tab content. And the second thing it does is set a data attribute on a parent element. And that will control which of the actual tab contents is rendered. And this is what that looks like. So here we have our tab buttons. We have the classes here that have the group data selectors. And you can see that they're all hidden by default, and they're set to display block when the appropriate data attribute is set. And the JS command for that is, like I said, it's the push, which shows the flash, and it's the set attribute, which actually does the data attribute setting on the front end. And you might notice that there's like a little bit of lag there. I have the latency sim enabled, so you can see that the tab content changes immediately. It's eager on the client side. And that way the user gets their tab content immediately while the LiveView handles whatever event in the background. All right. So transitions. There are a few things that go into transitions I want to touch on before we continue. In LiveView, there's the js.transition function. And essentially this takes three things. It takes some classes that are applied during the whole length of the transition. Takes a start keyframe, which are classes that are applied just at the beginning of the transition, and then a final state. So you basically have like, you give it like the start and end, and then CSS figures out the in-between. So this would change the opacity of an element from 0 to 100 over 300 milliseconds. And this is a JS command you could run on any element. This is useful for, making your live views more animated. And yeah, this is the flow. So start classes are added, then transition classes. On the next animation frame, we add end classes and remove start classes. And then after that time in milliseconds goes by, everything is cleaned up. Now, what can we do with this and what we now know about Tailwind? We can have really neat view transitions. So here, I am clicking between these cards, and they have this nice kind of like swipe in and out. And what's neat is that from LiveView's perspective, the way this is implemented, only one of these cards is actually like rendered at a time. And LiveView is able to have both elements on the page when it's like transitioning between pages, like navigating between pages, because it needs to, based on the transitions it's running. And so you get to see both as it cuts. Like these buttons, they're not doing anything particularly special. We look, well, actually, they are doing a lot. So I thought they were just patches. They're not exactly, but they do. They add some special classes that allows this behavior to happen. But if you look at the live view itself, the handle params is just rendering a single card. That's all you have to worry about. And live view orchestrates the transition. And it does this using Tailwind groups, named groups, and that JS transition function. And yeah, that is it. We're getting to the point where each class gets its own line in the code base. And I still have one more demo. This can also be used with a full page too. So, okay. Next thing to know about Tailwind that I think is really cool is you can define CSS variables inline using classes. And what this looks like is you can have square brackets and name a variable. In this case, it's custom width. And then in another class, you can reference that variable. So if you're worried about duplicating classes or values in your CSS, in your Tailwind code, you can just use these named variables. Here's one that defines like left padding, and then we reference it when we're using PL on an element. You can also do calculations with these in your CSS class names. So here, if we want half of the width, we can calc and multiply by 0.5. And you can get pretty crazy with these because now you can have multiple variables used in multiple places. This one's defining a third variable by calculating the result of adding 2 other variables and then using that. And it just feels like a really good way to organize your code. And of course, you can mix this with everything else we've learned about Tailwind. So we can define this variable right 20%, but only when this data attribute is set to, in this case, SM or small. And otherwise, it won't be defined. So now we can do more or less math in our CSS classes based on arbitrary things like if something is hovered or the screen size or if you have a data attribute on your elements. And now this is where I try to prove to you that this is practical in some way. which brings us to the fourth demo. All the code I've shown you to is running in production in some way because no one can stop me. But this is like an example of a real UI that I implemented in my app where we have a split view screen where your screen is split into two parts, and you can adjust the location of that split, and you can also change if that split is open or closed. So like, which one is focused more or less. And this all has to work together, be responsive. Might have multiple ways to trigger it with like these arrows, for example, instead of the buttons up top. But it's not super easy or clear to like solve this, especially if you don't want to like dip into JavaScript or writing a lot of custom CSS. So I was asking myself, how can I do this only with Tailwind and JS transitions? And the answer is a lot of classes. So first of all, this is the actual LiveView that's rendering this. I'll increase this a bit. So what you'll notice first is that there aren't any classes, because even though some of this code might be dense, you can still very easily encapsulate it in the function components and the Heeks style components that Phoenix gives us to work with. So all of what I would say the substance is of this page can be decoupled from how we've implemented the view transition. And what I mean by that is here we have the component that facilitates this magic split view. And there are two slots, one for the left side and one for the right. So once that component's implemented, you can continue building your app and just worry about like rendering the things that go inside of there. And the classes that we're about to see are like in their own place, never have to be touched. We're not too worried about them. And these are the classes. So I'll do my best to explain what these are, because there's a lot happening. So first of all, up here, we have some variables defined dependent on the data attribute for size. So this dictates how large the right panel is, and it could be 50%, 35%, or 20% of the viewport. We then calculate the left side size by doing 100% minus whatever that was. We have a constant that has to do with some offsets. And then we give this a group name for this animated split view. So that's kind of the setup code. And the magic happens when we start to apply that here. So here we're applying a left margin. Those two characters there are like how you know this is giving it a left margin, but you can see that when it's doing some calculation to determine what that left margin is, and that determines if the left side is slid off the page or not. And we do similar things for the inner elements, just so we're positioning them correctly according to the data attributes that we've set with these buttons. And what's great about this is because we can use screen size selectors like this LG, this can all be responsive. So we go down to this, and now we can just switch between the views. It's not animated, but on mobile, you might just want to treat them as different pages, more or less. But this was all done with CSS classes. And yeah, I think that covers it for this component. So that brings us to the longest class that I used in this talk, which is 100 characters in a single CSS class, using two different variants, a group data, custom group data selector with a named group and several calculations inside of an arbitrary value bracket. And I think it's wonderful that you can do that. And I encourage you all to do the same. That is all.